How's it going, all of you? Welcome to my YouTube channel Amazing Info. Before we get started, I want to know, what do you think would be the worst crime to commit? Let me know your answers in the comment section below. There are a lot of criminals who commit horrible and evil crimes. So, when it is time to face their verdicts, a lot of these criminals have different intense reactions to their sentencing. So here are the top 10 convicts who freak out after given a life sentence. Starting us off in at number 10 with a mother and daughter's desperate plea. An 18-year-old teenager was sentenced to 20 years in prison after she used a dating app to set up a robbery that resulted in another teenager getting shot. When the judge handed down her sentence, the girl's mother dropped to the floor, crying out with extreme grief. The teenage girl was screaming for her mother and begging the judge to give her a lighter sentence. Headbanger comes in at number 9. Brandon Spencer is serving a life sentence for opening fire at a Halloween party at the University of Southern California. He was charged with 4 counts of attempted murder, and this was his reaction to his arraignment.
21-year-old Brandon Spencer of Inglewood bangs his head as a judge sentences him to 40 years to life after he was convicted of shooting a rival gang member.
Number 8 brings us to 2 females who freak out after receiving a life sentence. These 2 women collapsed in court after they were both handed life sentences for the death of a 3-year-old girl. Shortly after the judge read their sentencing, they fell to the floor with emotional outcries and they had to be wheeled out of the courtroom. Moving into number 7. Yalil Hoskins pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and tampering with evidence after he violently murdered a mother of 5 and dumped her body in a trash dumpster. When the judge ordered him to serve a life sentence without the possibility of parole, he threw the podium towards the judge and he had to be dragged out of the courtroom by the deputies. Man fights with deputies comes in at number 6. A 19-year-old received a sentence of life imprisonment after he shot and killed another man in an attempt to rob him. The convicted killer was still hopeful that he would at least get the chance of parole. But when the judge said that parole was out of the question, it sparked an aggressive outburst. Number 5 takes us to a man who threatens to kill the judge. During his trial, Juan Rodriguez was being convicted of murder for stabbing a nurse at a mental health facility. Instead of making any last-minute pleas, he threatened to kill the judge if she didn't let him out of jail.
Listen to me. You don't let me out of here, I'm gonna kill you. I'm a Jew. I'm gonna take your life if you don't let me out of here. Okay? I'm done.
A 19-year-old man went into an aggressive rage after a jury sentenced him to death for a murder, and this comes in at number 4. He began knocking down chairs before he was tackled by dozens of courtroom officers who eventually dragged him out of the courtroom. Stun gun shocks its way into number 3. Andrew Worth was charged with first-degree murder after he shot and killed a police officer. His bail was set at $1 million, and after the judge sentenced him, this is how he reacted. The officers had to use an electric stun gun to calm him down before they carried him out of the courtroom. Number 2 brings us to Michael Marin. After he was found guilty of arson and almost facing a life sentence behind bars, he placed his hands over his mouth and swallowed something. A few minutes later, he began gagging and he died in the courtroom. A toxicology report discovered that he had poisoned himself with cyanide after he heard the verdict of his sentencing.
And appears to swallow again. But 8 minutes later, Marin starts convulsing and collapses.
A violent man makes it into number 1. A judge sentenced Marcial Anguiano to 40 years in prison for aggravated assault after he cut his niece with a butcher knife. After he heard the sentencing, he used a thin blade from a safety razor and slit his throat in an apparent suicide attempt. He survived, but he will probably receive more time for sneaking contraband into the courtroom. Well, there you guys have it. That is the end of this video. Thank you so much guys for watching.